Hi folks, you were Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about yet another one of the endless soft shoe shuffle of globalist propaganda promoting race and gender division and division based along sexuality. It's just an endless barrage of this promoting division and promoting suspicion and doubt and so on. And this one's about in Australia, there's a supposed an epidemic, I tell you, of sexual workplace harassment by evil oppressor men and helpless victim women. So hold on, what about all this equality? No. Men are at the top of the oppressor tree, but they're only apparently it's white men who do it. Brown and black men don't do it. It's only those evil middle-class white men. And it is middle-class white men, by the way, that do it. They're all neo-Nazi fascists. They're all Hitler. Let's get it out there. They're all Hitler, and they're all engaged in workplace sexual harassment of women. Now, let's have a look at the evidence. Well, firstly, it's put together by an activist group that churns out propaganda day after day. So why you would want to treat that as, but it's headline news in much of the media, or was, a week or so ago in Australia. So it's being taken seriously, and then sensational thing. Workplace sexual bullying and harassment has never been greater. And now. There is a mention that this sometimes happens to men, but that's a passing thing of who cares, and they go straight into the gender hustling stuff. Now, as I say, firstly, it was produced by a recognised propaganda pushing outlet that does this stuff all the time. The people involved, again, are the same angry gender studies lesbian people and people have a vested interest, some of the NGOs. The second thing is that the evidence they're putting forward is anecdotal. That is, women are supposedly coming forward and saying, yeah, I was harassed. The third thing that's notable is that they've expanded the definition of what workplace sexual harassment includes. So if you overhear a joke or overhear an utterance from the conversation of another party or someone's talking, on the phone or whatever, if you overhear it or manage to overhear it, maybe the door to their office isn't fully closed, whatever, you say or you think you've overheard it, maybe you caught a few words out of a conversation, then that is now sexual. So it could be an ill-taste joke or something of that nature. And that's enough to say, well, I was sexually harassed in the workplace. So when you look at that in its totality, you think, well, gee, that doesn't look like an epidemic to me, but nonetheless. So they in one example, there's a guy who's supposedly got 4 daughters, and he claims they're all working in different places, and according to him, according to them and him, they're all being sexually harassed in all of their respective workplaces and all at the same time. That's believable. That sounds like the truth. So now what form does this harassment take? Well, these are younger women, so they'd be, between the ages of, say, 17 and 25, in that age range. And I don't know if they're actually brown, the women. It could be. That's a little vague, but the claim, as in light brown, maybe North Indian or something like that. But anyway, they one of them claims that her boss, which is like I think he's an owner of a shop or something like that, or a small business perhaps, that she claims that he might have been photographing her ass. So, she would, I don't know, lean forward to do something, I don't know, sweep the floor or whatever it might be. He would photograph her ass. And now the photograph of which I assume is her, I don't know. The guy must be pretty desperate if he's trying to photograph her or her ass. She ain't hot. She is no hot babe or anything. So why the guy would want to photograph her? I think she might be flattering herself there. But anyway, let's assume it's so. That he photographed. Now, was he photographing her doing a job or something like that, or was he actually photographing her? Was he actually photographing her ass? Now, her sort of claim is that she was doing something. He told her to do some sort of job, perform some sort of task, which she concedes would be consistent with her job description, and she looked around and she saw him with a telephone, mobile phone camera, and he was photographing her. Now she's fully clothed. There's no skin showing, or and again, she's no beauty queen. So her thing though is he's not just photographing something around me, or so he's not just photographing me, he's photographing my ass. That's her claim. Now that's a bit of a stretch, I would think. Now, I suppose it's possible, I guess. I don't know. And I do think that's a bit odd if it's happening. I mean, why would you do that? But on the basis that she claims that she's got her back to him, so she could be anybody, and that there's no skin showing, I'm thinking, well, what would be the big deal anyway? And like if she's wearing skin tight jeans or something, or trousers, maybe then, or like tight fitting shorts, maybe then you'd have a sort of, well, that might be it. But there doesn't appear to be any of that going on. She just thinks I'm an unattractive chick in baggy clothes and he's photographing my ass. I'm not sure I buy that. Now the other daughters and other claims supposedly by other women, the sort of claims, another one claims that the boss asked her, yes, this is for her uniform for work. The boss, who's as a man, as I understand it anyway, asked her what shirt size for the uniform, what shirt size and trouser size, waist size, and this sort of stuff, shoes. And she said she didn't know what the size would be. So she tried to measure herself around the breasts and couldn't. So he held the tape measure while in that. So she says, but while he held the tape measure inappropriately. I mean, what does that mean? Does it mean he grabbed her tits as well? What does that mean exactly? You held a tape measure inappropriately. I don't know how you can get harassment out of that. But anyway, let's assume that there is an inappropriate way to hold a tape measure. Maybe he touched her on the back or something. I don't know. And this was interpreted as sexual harassment in some way. So again, I'm not sure I buy that. If she said, well, my shirt size is X, that would have been the end of it. She didn't know and then couldn't measure it herself, so she got help from somebody. It was and that was inappropriate. Again, I don't buy that. And it would be a stretch to make the claim. And given all these girls are from the same family, and they're all claiming they're all being harassed at the same time, even though they're all in different workplaces. And so I don't buy any of that. The next thing beyond that, or the next example, was that another one claimed that she overheard a joke that had she thought it had a sexual innuendo, but she couldn't remember the exact words, but nonetheless, let's call it sexual harassment, she decides. And there are a couple of other sort of claims that run along similar. So we're talking very low level stuff, indeed, if it's happening at all. So it's very hard to where it's an epidemic, you claim, epidemic of sexual harassment, and there needs to be strong legal measures. These men all need to be thrown into prison. They're fucking neo-Nazi Hitlers. Throw them into prison. But if these are the things that are going on, hey, you held a tape measure inappropriately, it's damn prison for you. But when you get politicized courts and activist judges and activist prosecutors, it's possible to be thrown in prison for spitting on the sidewalk or something like that. So we can't dismiss this in the hands of hysterical activists. For example, so you inappropriately photographed a situation in the workplace that included women. Well, we say, the activists, this is, we say if you do that, it means you're a misogynist, patriarchal Nazi. And if you're a Nazi, it means you're Hitler. And if you're Hitler, you have no legal rights, and we can put you in prison for 5 years. What? Well, you're Hitler. You're Hitler. We're allowed to do it. So that would be the curve that it would take, and it'll be specially designed to throw straight white men in prison. But now the other option, of course, is you don't employ activist women or women that have the slightest sign or indication of activism. But the activist women will be the least able to get on with other people, and therefore you'd be able to employ them for the cheapest, lowest salaries. And those are the women most likely to claim of being victimized and I'm oppressed, and they're most likely to be involved in the placard waving and the climate change activism and be around people all the time that are telling you're being oppressed. If he shakes your hand when he meets you, what that really means is he's oppressing you. That type of mentality. And so these are all, as best I can tell, women in the lowest paid jobs. And the reason they can only access those jobs is because they're incapable of fitting into any other place. So they're only being hired because they're prepared to accept the lowest wage. That would be my overall take of it all. But in terms of an epidemic of sexual harassment, there was not a shred of evidence that was in any way would stand up to even slight scrutiny in this. But on the other side, there is a lot of activism saying that the legal system should be ginned up and ideologically fanaticized, if I can use that term, to go after these men who have done, well, no one really can say what they've done, but they might be harassers, so that's good enough to throw them in prison or fine the crap out of them and so on. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.